These frames might overturn everything that you thought about unidentified flying objects. Strange lights, crashes, humanoids, and videos that are too frightening to be ordinary fiction. Watch until the very end. I have left the most shocking moments for the last. I wish you a pleasant viewing. These frames, filmed in the year 2004, show that which looks like a classic observation of an unidentified flying object. We see a spherical object with bright white lights, which rotates in the sky. But that which happened after the first publication of the video made the plot even more interesting. Someone shared in the comments a photograph of a similar observation. This detail leads to the thought that the person who filmed the unidentified flying object on camera was not the only witness on that day. And when several eyewitnesses report about one and the same thing, we can fight off the questions about what we actually saw as much as we want, or find the solution together. In the sky above the United States, a local resident pointed his telephone into the night sky when he noticed in it two light spheres that were drifting in the air. The spheres slowly flew over his neighborhood. They moved not like satellites and did not blink like airplanes. But that which followed after this alarmed truly. On the recording, a military helicopter is distinctly visible, flying after the lights as if it was trying to track them. All three stably held together for some time. Later, the authorities confirmed that on that night, training exercises with a helicopter were being conducted, but official sources denied any information about the participation of two glowing objects in this procession. As you understand, this denial caused only more questions. After all, we do not like it when we are taken for idiots. True? On this video, a whole group of glowing spheres is shown, drifting across the night sky. Despite the fact that the frames were filmed from afar, the mysterious lights were distinctly visible. Soon after the publication of this video, another one appeared on the network, even more strange. At first, the spheres grouped together and moved as if they were connected. Then, without a warning, they scattered in the air, and the rays of their light flew apart in different directions. A few moments later, all the spheres slowly disappeared. Where did they direct themselves? And what is more important, why did they end up here at all? Recently, these frames spread in the networks with viral rapidity. We see on them a glowing sphere that sweeps over the expanses of fields with incredible speed. The spherical object moves so fast that you immediately understand. This is not an ordinary airplane, and not even a supersonic fighter jet. They say that the video was recorded in a small town in Scotland, but the exact location is not disclosed. And, according to the opinion of some experts, this secrecy is not accidental. Active enthusiasts of the study of unidentified flying objects assert that over the last few months in this area, a multitude of similar observations have been recorded. This means that official persons are intentionally keeping the details silent. We can only assume that we see a rare atmospheric phenomenon, or this is us advanced technology, but let us not deceive ourselves. Here is something completely different, do you agree? Whatever flashed in the frame, it was not noticed by the mass media. This video begins quite ordinarily. Some stone is lying on the road and is hindering the traffic. But after a few minutes, it became obvious that the stone is not quite ordinary, when several cars of the police department of New York arrived at the place at once. At first, the man who was filming the video thought that this was an art installation, but the reaction of the police officers made it clear the boulder presents a great interest for them. That which at first glance resembled a rock formation turned out to be a part of something bigger. The stone of unknown origin was all carved with a semblance of a relief drawing. It had a specific texture. And even if you call it simply a meteorite that fell here at night, the unusual appearance clearly betrays in it an alien from outer space. A farmer from the Canadian province of Saskatchewan was working in the field with his oldest son when an interesting fragment appeared before their eyes. They did not guess what this was and how it ended up on their land. Thus, an ordinary working day turned into a strange discovery, which could not be left just like that without attention. Even if from afar, the object looked like garbage, but up close this was clearly something else. The fragment weighed almost 50 kilograms and had strong traces of burns, as if it survived a fire. The material included carbon fiber and aluminum honeycombs, which usually are not encountered on agricultural lands. Experts assumed that the piece could be fragments of a satellite that returned and crashed into the atmosphere of the Earth. By the way, earlier in the province of Saskatchewan, similar cases had already occurred, but the question still remained open. How did the fall of a satellite and such massive fragments go unnoticed? The second question about the material, the composite of carbon fiber, consisted of 3 layers. In the middle, aluminum honeycombs were discovered, and the outer part again was made out of composite carbon. A man was going out onto the street and suddenly saw a huge flying object above his house. Its dimensions and sudden appearance was a frightening surprise. Everything in the appearance of the unidentified flying object seemed alarming, but most of all, the silence disturbed. The object did not make a sound at all. For human perception, any flying device must make noise. Otherwise, how will it hold itself in the air? The absence of the sound of an engine is considered impossible for technologies created by a human. And if such means of transportation truly exist, then our technical innovations are simply a kindergarten in comparison with the achievements of these civilizations. If we cannot even guess how their saucers fly, then all the more, we will not be able to find out why they are visiting us. Let us look at what we can do against an invasion of aliens. Once late in the evening in New Jersey, a local resident was frightened by a noise on the street. He went out and met other alarmed people who were looking into the dark sky. A multicolored glowing object was approaching them. For a moment, fear and disbelief took the upper hand. Could this really be an unidentified flying object? In a desperate attempt to react somehow, the local resident snatched out a pistol and tried to shoot at it, but the object did not stop. It slowly and steadily drifted, disappearing in the distance. Is it worth laughing at the pointlessness of using earthly weapons against such technology? We should think about what encounters with unidentified flying objects are fraught with, and what can happen in the near future. The user who published this clip wished to remain incognito. From the first seconds, it seems that the frames were filmed on a quiet parking lot. But as soon as the camera zooms in on the horizon line, it seems that a massive figure is descending there. Slowly, methodically, controllably, exactly as airplanes perform a landing on a runway. Skeptics wrote exactly that it was simply an airplane shrouded in vapors that distorted its contours. But we do not see signs of an airport nearby. A local resident in Mexico was returning home at dusk. When he was driving past the airport, he noticed something from which he immediately felt uneasy. A gigantic disc-shaped object hovered in the air above the territory. The man stopped and began to film it on the camera of his telephone. That which happened next shook him to the depths of his soul. The object slowly moved in the direction of the airport, positioned itself above a hangar, and began to descend until it disappeared inside. When the person tried to approach, security stopped him. Later, the authorities denied that any airplane or object landed at that place. Pilots who were flying over the state of Oregon suddenly discovered that they became witnesses of an inexplicable phenomenon. One of them immediately contacted the Center of Air Traffic Control, and it was then that he found out that his message was not the only one. Apparently, everyone who happened to be in the sky noticed strange objects with bright red lights. They were maneuvering at an altitude of about 300 meters. Later, the Federal Aviation Administration confirmed that all the messages were registered at the same time, 23 hours and 39 minutes, and officially named lights of satellites. The pilots were recommended to avoid approaching them and flying in this area. But if these really were satellites, why was such an instruction given to the pilots? The first thing that people say when reporting about their observations of unidentified flying objects: "You will think that I am crazy." But if you are piloting an airplane and you see how on the path something in the blink of an eye moved from right to left and then blinked with a bright light 3-4 times, you of course will report to the dispatcher. Everything is not in order in the sky. Let us consider this incident on board the flight of the airline JetBlue, when the pilot reported about the movement of some objects with the speed of a flash. In a fraction of a second, they moved a great distance. This happened so fast that the pilot could not even understand what he saw. He described in detail the trajectory of movement of the foreign objects. This was not one random flash, but exactly a presence. Then, another recording appeared. It was reported about a second incident over open waters, when the pilots of the Emergency Medical Service and the Coast Guard became witnesses of movement over the ocean. Something was moving at supersonic speed. Now cameras record everything, and it is impossible to brush off these observations as simple illusions. This video recording was shared by a person who claimed that he lives not far from a secret military base of the United States. Supposedly, he was simply taking a walk when a strange movement attracted his attention. That which he captured looks like an undetermined flying apparatus or an unidentified flying object, which was trying to take off. Thus, there exists a theory that asserts that world superpowers on the sly strive to establish contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. And in order to understand the principles of their technologies, they began to build ships, imitations of the constructions of unidentified flying objects. If this theory is true even partially, then these frames could be not an observation of aliens, but a proof that the tests of our earthly saucers have already become a routine on secret testing grounds. If you call it an absurdity, the hypothesis that governments and military forces do not come into contact and do not try to cooperate with aliens, then first look at this plot. In the first episode, 2 helicopters are flying next to an unidentified flying apparatus. This does not look like a chase. Rather, the flight looks like a coordinated escort. This might convince some that humans and aliens, possibly, are already working together. But the second video clip tells another story. This time, a pursuit is clearly visible. We see an unidentified object, which is closely followed by 2 airplanes. The movement is tense, it is controlled, and even from the side, seems far from cooperation. So what will you say? Are these ships escorting or intercepting? Special services continue to lose secret frames. This time they leaked, presumably, from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Now we see that, which many call proof of the existence of a satellite under the Gothic name Black Knight. Theories of conspiracy assert that this is not simply a satellite, but a space apparatus of extraterrestrial origin, which secretly rotates around the Earth along a circumpolar trajectory. According to the opinion of theorists, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration actively hides its existence and origin. While skeptics assert that this is only space garbage, experts on the research of unidentified flying objects pay attention to its unusual shape and strange orbit. All this leads to the thought about mysterious events, about which the public is not supposed to know. How do you think? Is it possible that a relic of alien technologies dwells in our sky? Or is here yet another case of the penetration of space garbage? Frames continue to leak from Area 51. This video can be a confirmation of a multitude of rumors that are connected with this place. It seems we have here a huge crane lifting something similar to an unidentified flying object. Several people are standing nearby, most likely controlling the operation. These frames were uploaded by a person who asserts that he himself became a witness of these unusual events in that area at the end of the 90s. And yes, in an era when artificial intelligence makes trust in everything that you see difficult, skepticism is quite justified. But in fact, Area 51 has been surrounded by mystery and contradictions throughout decades. Therefore, even this one story is enough to believe. Experiments with unidentified flying objects existed. Who knows, maybe now they have stepped far forward. A resident of Dubai was filming unsettled weather on camera. A storm was beginning when something completely unexpected burst into his camera. Lightning flashed, and it suddenly illuminated in the sky the contour of a massive triangular figure, which hung high without movement. The motionless, huge object, according to preliminary estimates, could reach in width up to 200 meters. The object looked ideally camouflaged against the background of the night sky, and it showed itself only for a fraction of a second. when the lightning illuminated everything around. If it were not for the discharge, no one would have ever noticed it. The object did not move, did not blink, and did not make a sound. It silently observed the city below. This time, the material filmed by the eyewitness was not blurry or trembling. The camera captured something clear and alarmingly convincing. A resident of Florida uploaded a video filmed in the neighborhood with his area. The object has a distinct triangular shape with a strange glow. Its lights are located along the edges. What is even more alerting is the low altitude. So close it ended up being. For a moment, the man had a feeling that this apparatus could land at any second. But, fortunately, this did not happen. The triangle slowly disappeared in the clouds, leaving after itself questions without answers and a multitude of frightened people. In the year 2023, a resident of Denver was returning home late in the evening when something in the sky forced him to grow cold from horror. Above the roofs hovered a massive disc-shaped object, softly glowing, as if illuminated from the inside. The man pulled out his telephone and began to film. The object remained completely motionless, and an alert silence spilled in the air. Then, a narrow ray of light from this disc descended to the ground and began to slowly pulsate, as if scanning the ground. When the video recording got onto the internet, stormy debates immediately began. Many converged on the opinion that that unidentified flying object was not similar to any known flying apparatus. Respectively, if we go by the method of exclusion, it did not belong to earthly transportation vehicles, but most likely was an alien spaceship. These frames were filmed by a surveillance camera in Missouri. That resident who shared the clip published it on the network and asked the internet community to give explanations. Naturally, many immediately called the phenomenon an alien ship. One user even stepped forward with a more clear description of the same incident. And here something more strange appeared in the plot. Instead of only one flying object, the presence in the frame of a multitude of humanoid figures was discussed. They moved across the sky, presumably, as a whole group. Some believe that these could have been aliens who came out into earthly space, like divers. In any case, a rational explanation must be found for everything. A resident was walking his dog on the hills of the Falkland Islands when he recorded a supposed encounter with an unidentified flying object. In the beginning, he was simply filming how they were playing with the dog, and when he returned home, he decided to edit a funny video clip. But as soon as he rewatched the recording, he was dumbfounded. In one of the moments, it is visible how an incomprehensible object approaches from afar. It performed an unusual maneuver similar to a turnaround, then leveled out and continued movement forward. According to the words of those who viewed these frames, they were some of the most literal and convincing proofs of the observation of an unidentified flying object. How do you consider, is the filming authentic, or is this a fake? These frames were filmed by a former pilot of the United States Air Force, serving in the subdivision Liberty Wing at an aviation base in Great Britain. According to his story, a flying apparatus glowing with a red color suddenly appeared in the sky and hovered right above him. The unusual triangular shape immediately attracted his attention. Despite the fact that on the basis of these frames, it is difficult to prove anything. But after the video got onto the network, the story was enriched with details in the section of comments. One user asserted that he lives nearby and confirmed that he saw the same object. But, according to his words, in his observation, there was one significant difference. The unidentified flying object did not simply hover in the air, but transmitted a signal by the method of Morse code. When the message was translated, the result astounded everyone. In the message was signified extraterrestrial. Extraterrestrial. And if this is the truth, maybe those who sent it did not intend to hide anymore? Possibly, they wanted the world to find out that they are here. A driver of a truck in Highland, state of Illinois, noticed an intensive light in the sky in the northeast. An unknown object slowly drifted above the road, not having wings and not producing any sound. The eyewitness contacted the local police in order to report about his observation. His call was not ignored. It is noteworthy that soon after this, people in nearby towns noticed the same object. The police set out observers. They described the unidentified flying object as a huge triangular flying apparatus. When someone tried to track it, the object quietly disappeared behind the line of trees. And it did not simply disappear. In those few seconds, while the officer decided to check whether the video was recorded, the object moved by at least 1 mile, if not further. In total, 6 witnesses confirmed the observation, 5 of whom were employees of the law enforcement organs. We have testimonies about encounters with aliens that waited a long time in the archives. Let us look at materials that are older than our parents. This person by the name of Jose Padilla, in the distant year 1945, was a little boy. At that time, he with his friend became witnesses of an unforgettable event. Not far from San Antonio in the state of New Mexico, only weeks after the end of the Second World War, the boys saw how a strange object, by shape similar to an avocado, crashed into the landscape. But the flying object did not become the most shocking part. Little creatures appeared from the fragments. They moved vertically, as if this was natural for them. Their figures resembled human ones, but by the character of movements, it clearly followed that they were not earthly humans. And only years later, this person decided to share his revelations in an interview. And now it has become known that the Department of Defense of the United States began an investigation of this incident. It is unlikely that anyone would have believed the children on their word. Probably, the proverb, "Everything has its own time," is true. These people were on a cruise when they noticed a strange flying apparatus hovering right above them. And again, the object hovered soundlessly. Only lights in the shape of a triangle reported about its presence. The situation was heating up, since the unidentified flying object did not react in any way to the crowd of observers below, as if their presence did not matter at all. According to the words of eyewitnesses, several calls were received in the 911 service, but they were recommended to ignore the occurrence. Well, considering the growing number of inexplicable observations, especially across the entire territory of the United States, possibly now is not the time to look away from the terrifying truth. They are not afraid of us and are not hiding. Panic began in the northeast of China, when people in the province of Hongjian noticed how something was falling from the sky. Residents told that they saw several burning fragments that were flying to the ground, and then a loud piercing sound resounded, from which the surroundings trembled. For a moment, no one understood what was happening. Then, the inhabitants of the village discovered a large spherical object. It lay on an open area. The district mass media even assumed the probability of an invasion of aliens. But the authorities clarified the situation, declaring that this was some kind of space garbage that caught fire upon entering the atmosphere of the Earth and fell. But for the people who saw this with their own eyes, the explanation did not seem convincing, and they called it yet another official attempt to hide the truth. The European Organization for Nuclear Research is one of the largest and most respected centers of scientific research in the world. While it was opening information about its research of ghost particles and about how to discover them, a more strange occurrence happened, which is connected with this organization. Witnesses asserted that a mysterious portal suddenly appeared in the air next to the laboratory. In other words, the heavens opened and almost immediately, the weather sharply changed. Naturally, this caused active discussions. People began to connect the unusual event with the experiments of the European Organization for Nuclear Research, believing that an installation capable of sharply influencing the atmosphere was created by them. The video quickly spread on the network, where it caused even greater amazement and debates. In the course of many years, rumors grew that Antarctica hides something more than simply ice. And this clip quite feeds this theory. On the frames filmed by researchers, a massive object in the shape of a saucer is visible, hovering low above the frozen landscape. It remains completely motionless, despite the strong wind, then emits a faint glow onto the icy surface below, as if it is scanning it or gathering samples. According to the words of a whole group of eyewitnesses, the object did not make any sounds at all. Soon it slowly rose upwards, backed up a little, and disappeared behind the white horizon. A man in Ohio captured something similar to a whole flotilla of unidentified flying objects. Unlike the previous observations of lonely ships, this incredible fleet moved across the sky as if a caravan. If we take into consideration the coordinated movement of several alien ships at once, it means they pursued an organized goal. They hovered, observing a specific place on the Earth and everyone who was located there. Then, just as fast as they appeared, they disappeared without a trace. People who do not want to believe will say that this is absolute nonsense, but similar observations continue to accumulate, and to ignore them is becoming all the more difficult. So, will we continue to brush them off, or will we discuss this? A geologist deviated from a hiking trail and stumbled upon an ingrown formation in a rock, which to the touch was not similar to an ordinary stone. A disc from an unknown material, it seems, merged with the stone many years ago. Its texture did not correspond to anything from that which this specialist studied earlier. In the end, he named the find a part of an alien ship. Possibly, the idea is not so far-fetched. The fact that we are only now speaking about aliens does not mean that they were not here long before our discoveries. It is logical to assume that these creatures could have visited the Earth millions of years ago. Even ancient civilizations, especially the Egyptians, were often attributed the possession of technologies that were ahead of their epoch. Is it possible that humans had a connection with extraterrestrial creatures? And this find could serve as a proof to that. Unlike official sources, which close their eyes to the frequent encounters with unidentified flying objects, enthusiasts of independent research actively stepped forward with declarations. One of them shook the ufological community. An independent expert shared a video recording, which, as he asserts, relates to the year 1979. The video was filmed in Colorado, not far from the mountain Archuleta Mesa. A massive flying apparatus in the shape of a saucer rests there inside a deep excavation. According to his words, this place was exactly the secret underground base Dulce, similar to Area 51, which is located exactly 500 miles from it. But the researcher asserted that the object was not built there, but was discovered during excavations. Supposedly, the ship lay under the Earth for millions of years. This detail again awakens the alarming idea that alien guests possibly were the first inhabitants and visitors on the Earth long before the appearance of humans. What thoughts do you have on this account? They say that this clip was filmed on the territory of the famous Area 51 in Nevada, and at first we observed nothing unusual. The military men are fulfilling their routine work, and only a little later something strange appears in the frame. A little humanoid figure somehow squeezed in among them, not causing a reaction of surprise or panic. Apparently, everyone here is already accustomed to this. The figure busily strolled as if it felt itself there in its own place. Soon after the appearance of this video, social networks exploded with theories. Many considered that the ordinariness of the frame speaks not of a discovery, but of a long-standing cooperation between the military of the United States and extraterrestrial creatures. But here's the question: how did they manage to achieve mutual understanding, and why are they cooperating? Share your thoughts in the comments. A man posted a short clip that quickly attracted the attention of the whole world. In an unknown place, dark clouds suddenly lit up with massive flashes of light. They flashed and collided, as if an intensive battle was happening in the sky. The character of the flashes was not similar to natural ones. The event itself seemed unnatural. The author of the video asserted that he observed some kind of aerial conflict and insisted that he recorded several clips on that night. It is not surprising that soon after this, the additional videos disappeared from his account, leaving this single clip. These frames with the catastrophe of an unidentified flying object excited the entire internet. Everything began in the year 2024, when an anonymous user uploaded this video onto Twitter. The person declared that the filmed material shows an unidentified flying object falling in the area of the Atlantic. But the story did not end on this. The anonymous person continued to accuse the American military of concealing the entire incident, asserting that official persons quickly confiscated all information before it had time to spread. Since no official details were made public, rumors only grew and became more alarming. According to numerous online sources, the fallen, unidentified flying object is now located under the guard of the military, and they are waiting for a reaction from those to whom it belonged. And if this is the truth, we can expect anything whatsoever. Do you remember the story about the alien in Las Vegas, filmed by a surveillance camera? There is yet another plot from a police surveillance camera, which supposedly recorded the emergency landing of an unidentified flying object onto the Earth. On this recording is shown another angle of the same incident, and it surfaced only recently. The person who recorded this says that he simply went out onto the street and saw how a strange blue light illuminated the night sky. This continued for only a moment, then disappeared, as if the flying object disintegrated or fell. What is interesting is how closely this plot resembles the more famous one, filmed by a police camera. The speech is not about connecting the two clips. I do not even ask you to believe in some specific theory. But when we find several recordings from different angles that show us similar facts, we cannot accuse everyone of hoaxes. Is that not so? On this, that is all for now. Share your thoughts in the comments. What produced the greatest impression on you? Subscribe to Top Facts, the most incredible collections of facts and videos from all over the internet. Thank you for the viewing, and right now, click on one of our previous episodes.